Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. Please come in, join us, and take a seat in the front.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the official Asia Farm Animal Day, the 10th of October. And we'll have this session dedicated to celebrate the day. But before doing so, there will be some fun activities.
Maybe someone would close the door or ask the other people to come in so it's not as loud. I know people love to talk, especially on the last day. Everybody wants to use their time. But I'm sure there will be many more people joining us in a few minutes. So we'll just start with some warm-up.
Yeah. Well,
Thank
have any of you managed to explore KL outside the event time? Raise your hand. Oh, just a few. Wow.
So few people. Nobody visited the city or had dinner somewhere outside. Who had dinner somewhere outside the hotel?
Oh,
okay,
good,
okay.
good.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Remember, I asked you the question on the first day because my Malaysian Vegan Society friend said Malaysia is the most friendly vegan place in Southeast Asia. Who agree with that? Oh, well then.
Okay.
There you go,
Yep.
Malaysian Vegan Society friends. Somebody thinks they're somewhere else. Well, we hope that everywhere in Southeast Asia and in Asia are vegan friendly. So let's work on that. Right. Okay. So before starting, I think I should spend some moment to briefly introduce the history of Asia Farmer Day. And it started in 2020. It's when the Farm Animal Coalition used the World Farmed Animals Day as a platform to surface that farm animals are sentient beings. They feel, they enjoy their life, they want to live just like us. And to recognize the urgency of farm animal welfare in Asia. But since 2021, members of the Farm Animal Coalitions, some are still in this room, like Mark Dia from World Animal Protection, Dr. Kate Blazak, who work with ARE now, Maho from the Humanic Japan, Jeff from Compassionate World Farming. Raise your hand if you're here. People might want to know you. And Don Neo, who's Global Food Partner now. And those people wanted to discuss and agree. And Craig from Asia Farm as well. He's used to be the Farm Animal Coordinator before me. And they discussed and agreed that we need an Asia Farm Animal Day to make this event an opportunity for capacity building, to strengthening our work and collaboration, and to facilitate the generation of ideas on how future could look like in relation to other key issues such as public health, sustainable business, inequality, food security, and climate change. That's how the Asia Farmer Day event came up and put together. And everyone decided that it's in October 10th is the day. And here we are today, making those goals possible. And over the last few years, we have seen the event coming from being online and today offline with 250 plus people attending. We've seen the first documentary about factory farming in Southeast Asia yesterday night from Vive. And we've seen so many collaboration, many working groups set up and established, and many discussions. So it's a long way already, like within 3 years, 4 years, we just make this happen. So it really impressed me a lot but it wouldn't be possible without every one of you showing that you want to collaborate, you want to make change, you want to be part of this. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Thanh. And the first speaker for this celebration session that we have the honor to introduce to you is actually literally the #1 person who is the reason behind our collaboration, because she is the one who introduced Thanh and I in January this year. So it's not too much, I think, to say that without her, the event as it is now, as we've just heard, Asia Farm Animal Day was a thing before, but it was not a conference and it was not an in-person event like this, like we're all experiencing it. So this would not exist without our first keynote speaker. So it's very, very special, and we're very thankful for her that she brought us together. She introduced us. She also co-founded the Effective Altruism chapter in Singapore 8 years ago. Now they are better known as Welfare Matters. She developed and supported the Farmed Animal Network in Southeast Asia and still is doing so, building up an impact-oriented culture of doing good based on evidence and global empathy. She and her team organize many, many meetups, talks, workshops throughout all Southeast Asia, and they also built the very successful fellowship program. Now I want to know who of the fellows is here in the room, because there are quite a few fellows this year. Welcome. Welcome again. So this is really the future of our movement in Southeast Asia, which is so exciting. Thank you for being here. Please give a very warm welcome now to Wanyi Zeng from Welfare Matters. Thank you so much.
Hi everyone, good morning. That made me more nervous with the introduction. And I think the thing about collaboration is when you realize that someone else can do a job, you make an intro, you get a lot of credit without doing the work. And I also want to point out that I started the work on farmed animal advocacy work in Singapore with Divya. Without her, these all would not happen. So I do have a speech finished at 9:30 p.m. US Eastern Time. So bear with me. I'll start now. Selamat pagi. Kalai vanakkam. 早上好. Ciao bui sang. Sawadika. Magandang umaga. Shubh prabhat. Namaste. Ohayo gozaimasu. 早安. Sabal kahir. Bom dia. Folugas. Buenos dias. Bonjour. Goedemorgen. Jean Dorpré. Good morning. Guten Morgen. Good morning, everyone. I wanted to celebrate the diversity of this conference as we're coming to the end of the first in-person Farmed Animal Advocacy Conference in Asia. I'm sure I missed out a few languages, so please excuse me, including local dialects. I'm also sure that I got a lot of pronunciations wrong, so drop me a message on Hova if you have comments for me on how to do it better next time. Thank you for being here this morning. Yes, I've been introduced as Wanyi, and I'm with Welfare Matters. Many people do not know me. I'm quite a new kid on the block for farmed animal movement. I've been really conscious of this, and I'm really glad that Reggie had asked the question on the first day, how many years people in this room have been working so far. To all of you who have been caring about farmed animals in Asia for the last 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years or more, thank you for paving the way for people like me. You've made it easier for those who care about animal sentience to do the work now. I am very humbled to be standing here in front of you at this celebration session to share my thoughts with you. Yes, you have heard it. When Julia and Thanh reached out to me to speak at this session, I played hard to get. I was really hesitating though. I have a huge temptation to say no, because I don't think that I'm good enough to be speaking to people who have worked so hard for so long and so passionately for much longer time than me for farmed animals. I have no advice, but I have so much to learn from other people. Fellows who have graduated from our program, I'm so proud from the first batch of fellows. I've been learning stuff from them since then. Then I realized that I probably have a role to play, not one of advising everyone else what to do. I probably am representing the latest wave of advocacy efforts for farmed animals in Southeast Asia through the work that I do with Divya and the Welfare Matters team in the last 2 years. I did ask them why they asked me to speak, and they have already said that. But let me repeat a little bit about my version of things. It goes back to the AFAD summit last year in DC, in the US. It was my first conference in the animal space. We went there to get immersed in the movement, which has existed for much longer time in the US than in Asia. Somehow, Julia knew that I was involved in organizing effective altruism, or EA conferences in Singapore, and asked if there was a need for something like AFAD Summit for Asia. I immediately said yes. I'm a big fan of conferences, even when I get conference fatigued a lot. To put it in simple English, tired. But conferences are a key component of movement building. I have been building communities in the last 10 years of my career. I was excited when I heard the idea. I offered to provide support, but could not commit to co-organizing one with Eva. Welfare Matters was going through some restructuring and rebranding, and we have a lot of goals that we needed to focus on. My first Eva conference blew my mind. People were so nice, and there was a deep sense of doing effective animal advocacy. I felt that we needed to bring this to Asia for more people to access such content and network to help further advance farmed animal advocacy. At the time of the conversation, I had already been attending the Asia Farm Animal Day AFAD conference that started online during the pandemic. So I remembered that Thanh had mentioned to me last year that they might be organizing one in person in 2023. Last year, we were still all slowly coming out of the pandemic, and international travel regulations were just already easing significantly by the end of the year. That means those online events were turning offline. No matter how much I love conferences, I do not think that we need that many events in Asia. I mean, we need time to do work, right? Will there be organizations duplicating efforts? Will there be too many conferences and events to participate in? How can we utilize the resources more effectively, as conferences are extremely tedious to organize? So I mentioned to Julia that she should talk to Thanh to find out about their plans. I'm so glad that they did connect, and we are now here with the product of this collaboration, a gathering of more than 200 advocates. For the first time, in person, in Asia, just about farmed animals. I'm very sure that if they had not joined forces, all of us would not be benefiting as much as we have in the last 2 days. For one, the collaboration has led to many people being able to receive travel awards to attend in person, including our fellowship program's participants from Vietnam and other Southeast Asian countries. Welfare Matters has 20 plus of our fellows here in the conference, making up about 10% of the attendees. I forgot I have a slide, sorry. Oh, it's not working. Oops, sorry, I forgot I had slides. Ta-da. Yep, We did a dinner, and these are mostly our fellows, but as well as speakers from our past fellowship and some tag-along friends. We had a budget, so we couldn't invite more. Sorry. We are extremely grateful for the opportunity to individuals like our fellows who need to interact with more people and organizations in the movement in Asia as they explore how they can find opportunities to contribute to farmed animals' welfare in this region. Our fellowship was entirely virtual, and we're meeting the latest cohort of fellows for the first time here. The connections made here will go a long way for our work for farmed animals. I'm sure of that. I also know that AFA has existed for a long time in Asia, that they can reach out to a network and understand what is culturally suitable and appropriate at such a conference. They were also the ones who started the inaugural AFAD online 2 years ago. Maybe more, I might be wrong. This long story is to highlight the spirit of collaboration and how we are all trying to reduce duplication and coordinate well for the movement in Asia. I'd like to take a moment for us to thank the organizing team who have been so tirelessly working on the conference: Thanh, Elsila, Vinny, Julia, Amy, Taylor, others in the team, including volunteers. Please give them a round of applause for our appreciation for making this conference happen. They are amazing. Okay, I'll leave this slide on for a while. My colleague, Amy Carrigan, recently wrote on our website's resources page the following. In 1964, Ruth Harrison wrote a groundbreaking book, Animal Machines. She highlighted that animals being raised in intensive farming systems were suffering in ways that had not been seen before. People started to debate the ethics of these modern farming methods and consider the welfare of the animals. It is thought that animal welfare emerged as a fundamentally new language and concept in the context of these 1960s debates about intensive farming. Amy writes really well in our team. So in Europe, the advocacy groups campaigning for the End the Cage Age European Citizens Initiative started a whole set of reforms, including getting cages to slowly get extinct in Europe. 60% of European hens are now cage-free. If you fact check and I'm wrong, please tell me. This is thanks to corporate campaigns and national government bans secured by advocates. We are so far from this in Asia. But I think that there is so much to learn from our European and American counterparts, both tactics for success and mistakes to avoid. I was chatting with Joy from ACT Asia yesterday, who has been working tirelessly for 20 years in the movement. She told me that there's always room for more people to work, and there's so much that we need to do. It does take a while for us to figure out what you would like to do and how you can best contribute. But you do need to stay in the movement to be able to contribute and help the animals here. So I've said quite a lot about the connection, how I got connected to AFA's collaboration with AVA for AFAD, and the comparison of our Asia's movement with the West. Let me share a little story about my personal journey into the movement. I read one of Peter Singer's books, and it changed my life. I know what's on your mind. But no, it was not animal liberation. It was the life you can save. A few years later, he gave a TED Talk, and this was my first exposure to the idea of effective altruism, EA. Back then, I thought it was just another TED Talk. Little did I know, there was a growing global movement of people trying to do a lot more good in their lives. Since I graduated from university, I have been hungry for impact. I felt that I was so lucky to be born in Singapore. At the time that I was born in, I'm not telling you the year, my life's opportunities are so different from that of my parents and grandparents. I lucked out in life's lucky draw. I was able to receive a good education. I live in a very stable and safe environment. I, as a woman and as an Asian, have a lot of freedom and choices in my life. I know that that's not a given, and a lot of people do not have what I had. I did nothing to earn that. I was born into it. My parents were born into very different circumstances, and they had not many choices in their life. So I wanted to pass on my luck to others, and I chose social work when I started my career. Yep, I was young and idealistic, and so I was looking out for a lot of short-term and grandiose outcomes, and I had set myself up for disappointment. I burned out after 4 years, maybe a little before that. I could not serve and be helpful anymore, but I still wanted to make an impact. So I traveled around the world, Southeast Asia, for about 9 months alone. And when I came back to Singapore, I was still a little lost about my career. I met someone in Singapore who nudged me just to do an EA chapter. And I was like, what's a chapter? I didn't know what that was, and I said no. But he's a good friend. He nudged me. And in EA, there's a concept called neglectedness. And I knew that in my situation at that time, I was in a position to take some risks. I was doing okay and had no debts, and I felt like I could try to do something that's neglected in Singapore, and started organizing the EA community voluntarily. Back then, we already were talking about farmed animals to people, but it wasn't a priority cause that we gave extra focus in our chapter. Within a year, the EA Singapore community started growing. It was slow, but steady with gaining interest. I went to my first EA conference all on my own in San Francisco with no proper salary back then. I really wanted to learn about EA and the global movement of people because they kept talking about making an impact, like more than others. I was really glad that I did. People were talking about doing the most good in every room, corridor, and conversations that I came across. I went back to Singapore and started doing EA Singapore not as a volunteer anymore, but as a full-time job. Funding is a funny thing. Sometimes it comes to you. It's just not always enough, but it's enough for you to make a struggle out of it. So I was very lucky to have some support from people who wanted to see the EA Singapore community grow. I continued to go to EA conferences every year and also brought it back to Singapore for a smaller and more local version of them. That is why when I started to focus more on farmed animals in 2021, it was important for me to attend the CARE conference online, AFAD online, and eventually AVA Summit in person last year. I strongly believe that conferences are an indicator of the size and health of a movement, beyond just a place to get the latest updated thinking and ideas and meeting people you would otherwise not have met. Back to EA Singapore, I really wanted to see it grow. Singapore is a country with a lot of excess wealth, and I know that many people are trying to look for a place that they can contribute to make an impact in their lives. This gives people meaning. But people don't always know what they can do. I was hoping that EA could mobilize resources and interests to be channeled to doing more good effectively. I'm not sure about my impact there, but that's another story. I have to mention EA Singapore because this is a big part of my journey to farmed animal advocacy movement. Focusing on farmed animal advocacy was not really something that I thought we would do. Singapore is not an agricultural country. We import from all of you. And Singapore had already gotten a lot of vegan groups, restaurants as well. And I didn't think that we would make a difference in this cause, and wanted to focus on building an EA community, people interested in doing the most good in their lives, and let them figure out which cause to prioritize, to work on through EA. But I probably should have done my research better and looked at the numbers in Southeast Asia. My assumption is that there were many groups in Asia working on this issue. It was wrong. In 2021, again, nudging from people, to do a farmed animal welfare fellowship for Southeast Asia. as part of EA Singapore's programs. I learned that there was the Ahimsa Fellowship in India and the International Farm and Welfare Fellowship, IFOF, in China. Again, I tried to play hard to get. I said, no, we will not do the Farm and Welfare Fellowship. I don't think we're the best people to do it. But at the same time, no, I wasn't trying to play hard to get. I really was hesitant and low in confidence. That's a joke in case you're very literal like me. Yeah. This time, I looked at the FAO stats, again, for Southeast Asia, and found out that this region has a high production of farmed animals. Sorry to the aquatic folks, it's really hard for me to remember stats for aquatic animals, but they are there. And so these are just land animals. Together with Divya, we tried to search for the organizations that existed that focused fully on farmed animal advocacy. We found less than 5. It blew my mind. I thought our research methods might be flawed. How can it be possible that there were barely any organizations working on this issue when the numbers are so huge and growing? We decided to try to run the fellowship and give it a shot. And I would like to give IFOF Maria a shout out because they shared with us many important tips when we started out. Collaboration. Over the last 2 years, farmed animal welfare took up most of our organization's efforts. Thus, we decided that it would be suitable and appropriate for us to change our name to Welfare Matters and fully focus on this extremely neglected cause in Southeast Asia. We hope that we can build up the talent pool which you know exists. Just look at the number of fellows who have been able to engage with us so far. Our mission is to help empower the next generation of change makers for farmed animal protection in Southeast Asia. The next speaker has personally made a huge difference in my life and helped empower me in my journey into farmed animal advocacy work. We are hopeful that there are many in Asia who want to dedicate their career to this cause, if only they know how. Before we proceed any further, I want to take a moment to acknowledge each of you. Your tireless efforts have not gone unnoticed. You've made documentaries that have exposed the harsh realities of factory farming. You've engaged in challenging conversations with corporations that I cannot do, pushing them to take steps towards higher welfare practices. You've ventured undercover into farms, which I cannot do, to unveil the conditions of farmed animals. And you've taken the bold steps of starting new organizations, which I can do, often with great uncertainty and some personal sacrifices. Some of you have stood on the streets, raising awareness, advocating for a change from the status quo. Please, let's give ourselves another round of applause for your well-deserved appreciation of each other for the relentless dedication you have shown to the cause of farmed animals. This applause is all for you. I haven't finished, just bear with me. While Welfare Matters focuses a lot on animal welfare, it is important to recognize that it's not the sole solution to reduce farmed animal suffering. All approaches are necessary. Promoting a more plant-based world, advocating for higher animal welfare standards, accelerating the shift to alternative proteins like cultivated meat, and growing our movement to include more empathetic individuals. None of these approaches is enough on its own, so all of your work is very important, and we must find where we can make the difference in making an effective contribution to the movement. In Singapore, the development of alternative protein is happening rapidly. It's inspiring to witness change that doesn't require confrontation. We can align our goals and work synergistically to create a more compassionate world. Last year, cultivated chicken went on sale in Singapore, the first country in the world that allowed the sale of cultivated meat for the general consumer. Last week, there was a piece of news in Singapore that cultivated pork from a Dutch company will be reaching consumers next year. While we are still far away from a food system that does not use sentient beings for food, the technology exists now. This is an exciting and hopeful time for us that the movement's goal of eliminating products that come from animals that were once sentient in life, it's possible. It's just not the way that most animal advocates could imagine. And Peter Singer made it a priority to go to Singapore to try it last month. he didn't tell us about that, and we didn't see him. So someone who knows him, please tell him to tell us next time he's in Singapore. Chef Dave said yesterday that many people think that it's not possible for what they have been doing. I'm so inspired by how Chef Dave and that team could achieve in such a short time. I think that while we have a daunting task, there are a few things that we should keep in mind to help us keep going. Again, someone from the conference was talking to me and reminded me of this 2 days ago. We need to be kind to animals. We also need to be kind to each other human beings. I believe that the majority of society does not wish to support animal cruelty. However, it's often challenging for individuals to know where to start or how to make a difference. It's also uncomfortable to confront the realities of where our food comes from and to assess whether we are truly living ethically. We are a room filled with compassionate, intelligent individuals who often live where we grew up. We need to harness the power of our compassion and intelligence to find innovative ways to impact animals positively. In our journey, we must remember to respect and show compassion, both to ourselves and others, even during moments of frustrations and disagreements. I've witnessed a warm, supportive movement in Asia and around the world, where success for farmed animals is a shared goal. Let's work hard, be strategic, be as effective as we can. But also, please take care and don't burn out. Take a break if you need, but come back. Conferences like this one are essential for our community to connect and check in on our progress. I look forward to our next gathering next year, and that I hope the number of attendees at AFAD will continue to grow over the years. Terima kasih, Nandri, Kanan, Dhanyavad. Thank you. That's all for thank you. Safe travels, and let's meet again next year.
Thank you very much, Wanyi. That's really inspiring and really good way to recap the meeting. Well, now it's my pleasure to introduce to you the second keynote speaker here today. Before we have another exciting part, it's my honor to introduce to you a remarkable person who has dedicated her life to pursue the justice and the well-being of all animals. She's a leading voice, captivating audiences around the world and inspiring countless of individuals to take action. Through persuasive storytelling, strategic partnerships, she has successfully elevated the voices of the voiceless and shed light on the urgent need for reform in our treatment of animals. She also has a book, which she will be able to tell you the title, I hope. It's available on Amazon and in many bookshelves. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to the President of Mercy for Animals, Leah Garces.
Hi, everyone. How are you? What? Come on, how are you? I'm American, so I'm like into cheerleading and being exaggeratingly excited, so forgive me. First, I want to thank the organizers here. It is no small effort to put something like this on. So can you stand if you were involved in organizing this, please? Please? Please stand if you were involved in organizing this. Yes. It's so special that we can all come together like this. And I especially want to thank the tech crew, too. Thank you for all of your hard work in making us sound good. Honestly, the mics are excellent. The space is excellent. It's so wonderful. It's really an honor for me to be here today and celebrate us being together in person on Asia Farm Animal Day. It's just a huge moment for us to reflect and celebrate and take a moment to appreciate each other and this incredible movement. We have come together over the last few days to really think about the strategies, think about the progress, but also face the hard realities that we are, unfortunately, tasked with solving. And it's so brave of us, it's so courageous of us to face those realities, and it's made easier when we are together. I think throughout this weekend, one thing that I have been thinking about is what gives me hope. And on this day of celebration, I want us all to take a moment to reflect on hope. So I hope you'll join me now in taking a moment to reflect on that. Let's see. I didn't even know I didn't practice this part. There we go. That's me. I grew up connecting with animals and caring about them just so very much. And, oh, I can't walk away, forgot. Oh, I can hold it, okay. Many of you, and it's culturally different, but how many of you grew up with animals in your home? Wow, that might have something to do with a lot of us caring so much. This was my dog Buster, who I would sing to, I would lay with. He was very special to me. He also ran away from home when I was born. He wasn't, I'm not sure, so happy about me coming into the world. He was very jealous, but we made up and we became friends. And over the years, I grew in my love of animals. It started with ducks, and I had ducks in my backyard who I got the privilege of laying on my belly on my porch and watching them hatch and seeing their drama. Ducks are very dramatic, if you don't know. And seeing them go out into the world and really feeling and knowing that animals, including farmed animals, there was no question in my mind that they were sentient beings, that they were worthy of joy, of families, of freedom. And I've been advocating for farmed animals for more than 20 years now. And I am so excited to be here in Malaysia. It was about 20 years ago when I first came to Malaysia, and I came here with a bunch of other advocates. And so I want to acknowledge and recognize that advocacy for animals has been happening for decades in the region. It really has. And I came here with East, Wu Hung from East, and I came with Acres, Lewis, who is now in Parliament in Singapore. I came with Pei Fang from who now runs ACT Asia. There have been people working in the region for so long. And I think that's important to recognize and to honor that we are standing on the shoulders of decades of work in the region. People trying to figure out, how do we do this? And in these decades, I've reflected a lot on this concept of hope. What is hope? I think hope we often think of as some kind of feeling or a belief, but it's not. I think hope is active. It is an active, it's an action. And the longer I do this work, that's how I see it. It's this brave choice that we all have to act towards something better. This conviction, this belief that something better exists. And it's that conviction that shapes the future. I literally think when we believe, when we begin to think about the future we want, we actually begin to shape it. We begin to take these steps toward this better future. And it seeds change. It seeds change is possible. And through this hope, we really imagine the future that we want. And through that imagining, we begin to shape that future. It sort of certifies that it's going to happen. But our hope is very grounded, I would say. We're not naive. It's grounded in the realities that we face and the harsh realities that we face in the suffering of farmed animals on a farm, in a slaughterhouse, or any kind of exploitation that they endure. We witness that suffering, and it's very easy to feel very overwhelmed and disheartened and even helpless. And I think that feeling, that darkness that we feel, is actually important, and I think that it is what drives us like a flashlight. This hope is a flashlight that drives us out of that darkness. Grounded in that darkness, though, we move towards that hope. And we know the gravity and urgency of the problem, and that gives us that fuel, that feeling that we have to keep going. Hope is a reminder that change is possible. You know, a lot of time, how many of you have heard, that's impossible before? People won't change. How many have heard, like, that's not going to change. What are you doing? Why are you wasting your time? Right, we've all heard that. And I just want to remind you that we don't believe that. We believe anybody can change. We believe any system can change, and we are those change agents driving that change. And we believe that something bad can become good, that a person that's fighting us will join us, that someone who is not plant-based will become plant-based. A company that doesn't believe in cage-free will go cage-free. We are change agents, and we believe in change being possible, which I think is so powerful and so hopeful, and we're a special sort of person that we believe that. It takes a lot of courage to believe that. Now, the opposite of hope is despair. Has anyone felt despair before in this room? Yeah. We all have. It's a really difficult feeling. It's this feeling where you say, what's the point? It's the feeling of wanting to give up. And we've all felt that from time to time. I know I have. But when we stop feeling hope, when we feel despair, do you know who wins? The abusers win. They would love us to think. They would love us to think that it's hopeless, that we can't win, that we have no power, that there's no reason to act. They would love that. And we cannot give in to despair. We have to persist for animals, and we must hold on to hope. Just as Martin Luther King said, we have to accept finite disappointment, but never, ever believe it isn't possible. So I want to give you some reasons for hope today. I have 5. 5 reasons to think about. The number one, this word unity. I know sometimes there's disagreement on the strategies and the way we're going, but our movement has really grown in unity, and I observe other movements, and I don't know if there's another movement as unified as us. No, we're not perfect, but I do believe we are so unified globally in our mission and our belief in ending factory farming. Each day we become more diverse, and I encourage us to continue to build bridges with each other. And I say that not just in terms of countries, but recognizing that different approaches are important. We need a diversity of approaches, and we need to respect the diversity of approaches. And because we are a tapestry that is all creating an incredibly strong fabric moving towards the end of factory farming. Our movement is global, so unity, global. Some regions in the world are starting to make tremendous progress, and some that I never thought would be the leaders. Brazil is making incredible progress all of a sudden. And as if you heard Lucas speak the other day, it's not that long ago that a real movement didn't exist there, and that gives me incredible hope to watch other countries accelerate their progress. So just because things seem slow and difficult, it doesn't mean that they're not going to move fast all of a sudden. And I think looking at countries around the world and looking at the global movement, it really shows that we don't care where an animal is born or hatched. They all deserve freedom and respect. And we are there for them. We are there to protect them because they are all worthy of our protection. We're also making legislative progress around the world. And I know that might seem difficult in some countries and impossible or very far off, but when I first started working actually in the UK at Compassionate World Farming in the early 2000s, and there were still many animals in cages and crates, and there hadn't even come into fruition the laws banning cages and crates yet. And now we're moving towards where there should be no animals in cages and crates in all of the EU, which I never could have imagined. There's still hurdles, but that is the direction we're going in. And in the United States, there are over a dozen states that are banning cages and crates. And again, 20 years ago, none of that seemed even possible. The first laws were passed in the early, mid-2000s. And just last year, I was in Kenya, And the United Nations Environment Assembly tabled and approved its first ever resolution on animal welfare, recognizing the importance of animal welfare in solving the triple planetary crisis. In India, there's been a ban on gestation and farrowing crates in over 20 states. And that happened so fast. It happened in a period of a year, less than a year. And these pieces of progress are kind of signify shifts in the way that governments think about their duty towards farmed animals. And I think that it can, did I do that? No, go back, go forward. Yeah, there we, no, yeah, there we go, thank you. I think it really signifies the kind of mentality change. And I think that we may think that the only success is when we get an actual law changed, but I want us to remember that every time you are having a conversation with a government person or anyone who's working on policy, you are beginning to change the mindset. Those conversations matter, and they're planting seeds. They are planting ideas, and those conversations lead to eventual legislation change. Corporations are also making incredible progress. So today, thanks to pressure campaigns from animal activists around the world, over 3,000 farmed animal corporate policies now exist, which is incredible. And in the United States, a third of egg production is now cage-free. That is unbelievable to me as a person living in the United States. And this trend is extending around the world. So we have trends and corporations from Brazil to Thailand that are making similar commitments. And we have companies within Asia even, like KFC, Nestle, Compass Group, and the Marriott that are recognizing this important and committing to go cage-free. Implementation, challenging, yes, but the fact that they're acknowledging that it's a problem and they're making that commitment is huge. And we also had Jollibee Foods, one of the largest restaurant chains in Asia, has made a commitment to go cage-free. Who would have thought? How would have any of us thought of that happening a decade ago? And today the commitments are being made and there will be shifts. These are the seeds of change that we should be hopeful for. And as Wanyi was just speaking about, we're starting this protein revolution, and Asia is leading. Singapore was the first country in the world to agree to sell cultivated meat to consumers. And part of that is driven by this food sovereignty, the issue of being able to feed future populations, and factory farming just being just the wrong choice for all kinds of reasons, but especially the wrong choice for sustainability. And I had the opportunity to try it last year when I was visiting Singapore, and I just couldn't believe it. I hadn't eaten chicken since I was very young, and I couldn't believe that here were cells of a chicken that had never suffered, who was never slaughtered, who was never hatched. It was incredible. And that imagining of the future, this protein revolution we're in, the technology does exist, and we are in the middle of that revolution. We are right there experiencing it, and it's so hopeful. And actually in December, I'll join NGOs and governments from around the world at COP in Dubai. And we're going to be having with ProVeg and others a food for climate pavilion. And we'll be talking about the need to eat plant-based and to abandon factory farming as a food system. These are hopeful things for us to hang on to. We must see these as signs of reassurance, reasons to celebrate. Today on Asia Farm Animal Day. Yes, we should be impatient for change. We should be impatient for change, but we need to recognize the progress we've made. Real change, if you've been working in this movement even for a few years, you know real change takes time. It takes advocates like all of you showing up day after day after day, months, years, even decades, and never conceding that it isn't possible. We are optimists, but we're not complacent. We are grounded in reality, but we're also fueled by that reality. We require a steady march over time, a relentless, steady march over time. The opposing force in our work almost always has more power, and it almost always has more money. Well, it always has more money, but they never have more passion and conviction than us. We do have a long way to go, but we are steadily marching together across time toward liberation and a place of peace on our planet. So let's continue to hold corporations responsible. Let's continue to demand and challenge governments where we can, either behind closed doors or in front of the doors. And let us inspire our families and our communities and our world around us to join us. Together, we witness these examples of hope and progress. And I hope you hold them with you during dark times, difficult times. I hope you hold these stories of resilience and our progress and the fact that all of us exist together as a flame for yourself, a kind of strength for yourself. Let's go back into our communities with this knowledge and this inspiration. And as this special time together comes to a close, I invite each of you right now to think about what over the last few days has given you hope. I want you to remember that. Do you know what's given me hope? It's each and every one of you, knowing that no matter what, the steady march across time continues against factory farming. And we might feel at times that we have to do everything. And I encourage you, do not be overwhelmed by the enormity of our task. Your contribution, whatever you're doing, matters. You just need to keep doing what you're doing and trusting in the collective effort, that this idea that you're doing what you can, where you can, with what you have, trusting others are doing the same. Trusting this is a collective effort, that around the world, people just like you are doing the exact same thing. And it's a large mutual effort to end factory farming, this cruel and oppressive system. When you leave here, I invite you to write down the thing you thought of and keep it somewhere, a Post-it note maybe. I have one. And whenever you're feeling that despair, that desire to give up, take that Post-it note out and remember what gives you hope. And let it be your flashlight, your endless fuel that keeps you going. May it be your compass and your guiding light as we together march together towards a world of justice and compassion. So please, will you stand with me now and celebrate each other and our march towards justice and compassion for farmed animals. And applaud yourself for showing up and being resilient and never, ever giving up and being part of this unstoppable movement. Please stand and give yourself a round of applause. Let's celebrate today on Asia Farmed Animal Day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leah. Thank you so much. Thank you, Leah. I hope we can all agree this was a wonderful way to end the celebration's keynotes, the two amazing keynotes that we just heard. And we actually have something else that we want to show you today, which is a little summary. Thank you, Thanh, which is a little summary of the last few days. And I hope you will recognize yourselves when you see our little video and photo compilation. Maybe I should use the clicker.
Sunshine, blue skies, gotta cry. Lilies are supposed to cross the line.
use that as an opportunity to celebrate ourselves one more time.
That is very lovely to see.